When it comes to farming, it seems like everybody wants you to start a microgreen business and you can get rich doing it. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. And today we're going to take a look at actual numbers from grower Vincent Cuneo's 6-year-old microgreen operation. These aren't projections, they're not possibilities. This is real revenue. Let's dig into it.
Top line hovering between 350 and 400, and we hope to get above 400. If you want to look at it in terms of tray production and revenue per tray, we're a little bit above $20 revenue per tray that we grow.
While a lot of microgreen growers have chased restaurants, Vincent went a different path. He chose to target the biggest opportunity in produce.
When I started my market research many years ago, I came across this figure here that I thought was really stunning, is that in a grocery store's produce section, leafy greens represent 40% of business sales. Almost every other sale in that fresh produce section is going to be a box of salad greens, a head of lettuce, a box of arugula, something like this. So I thought getting in there, that spot of the store, it's the prime location. It's the best place to be. And the microgreens allow us to be there. So that's the strength of the market there that gives us an edge. Restaurant sales were maybe about 10 to 15% of our top line. I think these days in New York City and many other stores, like a box of baby arugula is probably like $6.99, $7.99, something like that. We want our product to be just above their pricing. Not much. You don't want to go way above. And that pricing, getting in that bracket, getting in that range, makes it seamless for the customer to look at our product and be like, oh yeah, this is totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that. This is priced normally.
Here's his counterintuitive approach. Match the price, not the weight.
The way we've done it is that we start with the price. We start with understanding how much we want the price to be for that item. And then we work backwards to determine how much product can we put in, how many ounces can we afford to put in the package. And then we find the package. Their markup is set in stone. It's like a store policy. They figured that that's their markup, or they have a narrow range, and that's what they're going to do. They don't have a lot of maneuver and room for change.
What's harvest time per tray on average?
I think it takes us 12 hours of labor with a crew of 3 per week. So that's 36 hours. Say 40 hours for 400 trays. So on average, 10 trays per hour. So 6 minutes. So it's horrible.
This is their biggest cost. And Vincent says it's also where they make all of their money.
That's not where we make money. That's our biggest cost in the business.
Yeah. You could argue that is where you make the money though, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, that's the biggest cost. Many of our products have more than 12 days of shelf life, and some have more than 16 days, where it looks perfect at day 16. There's always a profit. The question is how much, because we'd like to take some of it home. It's not bad. It's good margin. Currently in the microgreens on margins, it's about 20% profit after everybody gets paid and everything is paid off.
20% profit margin after all costs. Say it again, 20% profit margin after all costs. In most small businesses, that's rare. And in farming, it can be unheard of.
It's good for any small business to have a 20% margin. So we can't complain. It was just hitting the road, giving them free samples, showing up, paying for the buyback credit until the market customers were accustomed to the product and started purchasing it. It was a game of patience and insisting and just going on Google Maps and finding all those locations. We've done a lot of sales in person and free samples has really been the key. And now we've secured about 30 retail locations that we serve every week throughout the region and New York City.
The buyback credit, offering to reimburse customers for unsold product, costs less than 1% of revenue. It's a rounding error that builds in trust with his wholesale customers.
We take the hit. It's 50% only, so we'll only reimburse them or give them a credit for half the value of whatever product is perished, but it keeps them happy. The total cost per year of that has always been less than 1% of our top line. And right now it's hovering at 0.5% of our top line revenue. So it's a very small cost to keep a small crew of guys who are maybe not the best with managing inventory, very happy and very confident that no matter what, they'll get a little bit of money back if they don't do it perfect.
That's 30 independent stores placing weekly orders, some buying for 7 years straight. Every bit of confidence and trust matters to them. So this 1% is nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Without those steady, every week, the same order retail sales, we wouldn't have made it. I don't think so.
At capacity with 400 trays per week, Vincent faces a tough choice.
I would put them on the waiting list and wait for another 5 to be on that waiting list. That's what I would do. I would not act on it before we would have something seriously relevant than 40 trays a week. The risk is low sales. The risk is high capital investment because this stuff, yeah, it's low barrier to entry, but it's not nothing. You still have to have the infrastructure in place, utilities, a lot of shelving, a lot of power consumption, all the gear that goes on the shelves and the trays and the capital investment to get started on growing a lot of trays on a rotation. So if the sales aren't there, I'm not doing it. Maybe it's a bit too cautious, but that's how I see it.
Instead of expanding microgreens, Vincent's chosen to add mushrooms.
Of course, we have the market stream figured out. I think once you sell something to a customer every week, it's not that hard to get going. So that's our approach. Now, our genius idea there is to diversify the company. So we want to have another fairly profitable business. We've built a facility just next to our microgreens building, and we spent 2.5 years doing construction, and we spent a year learning how to grow specialty mushrooms, and our sales are picking up. And that's how we're going to make it to the next level.
Vincent's biggest lesson came from his biggest mistake.
Number one, just get good before you make it a business. And by the way, I did not follow this piece of advice. I painfully learned while being already in business. And I had a lot of crop failures in the first year and a lot of nonsense. And so it was very stressful. Experiment with all your crops and take notes and get really good at it before you go in business. You don't want to be a microgreens grower. You want to be a business owner, and your business is producing microgreens. Do the market research and understand who you're going to sell enough microgreens to justify being in business.
Here's the real core of Vincent's model. Find the 40% of produce sales, price at parity with leafy greens, hand harvest for unmatched shelf life, and build relationships with independent stores.
Yeah, it's good. It's not the gravy train, but it's all right.
This is a small case study into what a real microgreen farm business looks like. In this case, it's stable, profitable, human scale, and likely repeatable in your area. So if this is something you want to do, start doing your research and start getting good at growing. Thanks for watching the video today. I'm Diego, D-I-E-G-O, and if you want to listen to the full interviews with Vincent, you can do so using the links below. Until next time, thanks for watching. Be nice, be thankful, and do the work.